Welcome, gentlemen and a handful of ladies, to GearWire Crosstalk show or program, episode number 33, where we talk about, well, the basics. Things that some people may have overlooked, things that some people may have missed, and things that newbies may be facing and need a little bit of help on. So we're going to break some things down for you. Yeah, questions like that. By the way, my name, as always, is Michael Seamus Payne, and with me is Mr. Drew Cragg.
What's up?
Drew Cragg.
And the fabulous Chubby Weatherald.
Chub.
Perfect. So let's get started. Let's get right on to things. Okay, so the last part of our Back to Basics special edition on GearWire Crosstalk show or program used to be called podcast. Now it's no longer called a podcast. It's kind of a vague term, so now we call it show or program or just Crosstalk.
Can we just get to the bottom of that?
Anyway, yeah, we should. We should let the readers decide, or the viewers
Yeah, you guys should
decide.
vote.
Yeah, we should put a little poll up.
I feel like I'm on a PBS documentary right now, like sponsored by Sears or some shit. Yeah, dude. What do you think about this? And now this was brought to you by Sears, building better home studios.
I'll be the Charlie Rose to your Chubbs Weatherald.
Ooh.
As long as I can
All right,
speak
so
like this.
Go ahead. The last part of our show, we're going to talk about why to record vocals apart from the other elements of your recording, or why not to record everything all at once, guerrilla garage band style, quote unquote. Why do that? Why record vocals separately? Gentlemen? Chubbs?
Why
Drew?
not? The only time I wouldn't would be if I was just documenting a band rehearsal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I used to do that all the time. We just record everything down to a 2-track.
Yeah.
Of course, the obvious problems with that are whatever mix you start with is the mix you finish with, and that is it.
Yep.
So if you have a situation like what we did in my first or second band, we set up our rehearsal space, put all the mics everywhere, and just every time we rehearsed, we tweaked the mix a little bit. And then a couple months later, actually like a year later, when we record our band rehearsal, it actually didn't sound that bad because we've been refining the mix, refining all our settings for so long. But, I mean, that's just documentation. We're not trying to put that stuff out. You know? That end result still sounded like crap. So
There's a whole mess of ways to record stuff, and you got to think about this all. I mean, like when you're in a live band setting and you're like, man, we only got 45 minutes of studio time. Our lead singer does play guitar at the same time. We've rehearsed all this stuff. Yeah, mic everything up separately, mic it all, mic whatever, and you go. And you track everything separately. You deal with bleed and stuff like that because it's supposed to be a demo. It's supposed to be rough. It's supposed to be garagey. You can do that. And you can actually get good sounds. And a lot of records you probably listened to have done that, and that's what will trip you out. Is you're like, man, I really like that Sonic Youth record. Oh, well, they recorded everything at the same freaking time, and that's why you get that gnarly like lo-fi thing.
yeah.
It's the purpose of your recording. And then there's other bands where you like want to sound like, I don't know, Fall Out Boy or some other ass-tastic band like that. And they isolate everything. They use $20,000 microphones, and everything is separate, and everything takes like 3 weeks to freaking record. And they get a really clean, very polished album. And that's why you record things separately, so you can go and make everything accentuate, and then you get all this good isolation and whatnot. But that's expensive and time-consuming. So, I mean, like, it's two different ideologies, similar kind of like rock music. Or you got singers and songwriters who can't sing without their guitar, so you actually have to do both at the same time. Or you got the guy from a hardcore band just screaming into a SM57 while everybody else is playing, and you get a better performance if they're all playing together. So, I mean, it's like everything will change. I mean, if you're doing hip-hop, like, he doesn't have to worry about this question.
Well, actually, I thought about that, and I do have to worry about this question. Not about recording vocals separately, but what was common for me in recording hip-hop is I'd have, a producer come through, and they'd most likely bring an MPC or a keyboard workstation or something like that. And, I'd have guys come in, and we'd run 2-track, or we'd run, 2 outs from the MPC and record the whole instrumental. Sometimes they have to resequence it there if one of the lyricists to change their lyrics. But one issue is that I had some people who would bring a CD in, like, oh, this is my track. What do you make it on? Oh, I make it on an MPC. And their mixes were terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, their drums were too hot. The melodic elements were too quiet, and I just couldn't stand it. I mean, half the time it was clipping, on these CDs he gave me, and there wasn't much I could do to repair that. So, I asked the guy what kind of MPC he had, and it turned out he had 8 outs on the thing, and so I had him bring it over, and then, I'd record each part, and then I'd do my own mix. And that gave me a lot more creative flexibility, and their end product turned out a lot better. So I thought about it, and I do. There were times when I did have to worry about that, doing mostly hip hop.
But it kind of goes to the thing is that this has nothing to do with why you would record things separately or together. This has to do with how you record it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the question that we're kind of tackling is less about like, why do I sit and record my vocals separately from the track? It's because you want different tracks. That's what you want. I mean, like you can do it all at the same time. Like literally, you can record. You know, if you have a 24 track recorder, you can record 24 tracks at the same time, separately, isolated if mic'd properly, and get the same mixing values that you go back and do it later. That's why you never that's why you don't record and mix at the same time.
Well, about that, I have a question. I'm actually working on starting a band right now, and there's 23 guitarists.
Yeah.
And we all have these Epiphone double necks over here, and we're all using Marshall half stacks. Yeah. It's called Guitar-Me.
There's actually
Guitar plus Army together, Guitar-Me.
There's actually this thing called Guitarchestra. And it was, I think, like 70 guitarists or something.
See, I was kidding.
No, this has really happened.
Did you guys see the Spinal Tap thing?
I did. That
What?
was hilarious.
There's this video.
The Spinal
They
Tap
did
thing
big
we're being
bottoms
asked about.
with like every bass player on the tour.
Oh wow.
It was
Man.
ridiculous.
There
You
was
should check it out. It's on YouTube.
there's also
Oh, that's right. It's on Gearwire.
there was also 77 drummers recently by the Boredoms.
Oh my good God.
There's
Wow.
recordings of that too. I mean, the thing is that like it doesn't matter how much you're dealing with. It just matters how you deal with recording it.
Mhm.
All right, like it doesn't matter what time and place it takes care of because you're sitting there and your end result is the same time and space. You know what I mean? It's the same. Like everything's going on at the same time in the end recording. So it doesn't matter when you record it. It just matters that you can organize it at the same time.
Well, what I'd be doing with Guitar-Me is I'd actually have 24 different whisper room booths up on the stage. So the audience actually can't see anything happening, and they can't hear the guitars live. They just hear the PA mix.
oh, man, so
you know.
that could work.
So we're
When's the
looking for
first gig?
engineering.
I will be there.
Yeah.
One thing I think we should tackle that's actually more important
Can't think of anything funny to say.
That was kind of funny.
is stacking, vocal stacking for hip hop, for rock, and the importance
Yeah.
of that. It's something that I think more or less is what this question would want to answer.
Yeah, and that's actually something I can tackle with the hip hop vocal stacking.
Yeah.
Some people are just naturally really good at it. They're really good at matching their recent recording. The rhythms are so natural that they just hit it every time. But the biggest thing that I did was I'd have to spend a lot of my time in the mix moving around different phrasings from each word, taking different syllables and moving them to match the original recording. And I'd usually spend quite a lot of time doing that, and there's really no way to automate it. But of course, you know, when there's there's large spaces between different parts that the vocalist is doubling. You've got to use a gate there because you're picking up headphone noise, you're picking up lip noise. Sometimes when they're doing the doubles, they're actually saying the whole part, but they only enunciate, they only say aloud the parts they want to double up. So those other parts, you'll hear lip noises, you'll hear breath noises and all that. And so you got to gate that out. Between the parts that you actually want to hear, you got to gate that out. But then the other half is actually just taking the different phrases and matching them, like I talked about a second ago. And aside from doing that with a digital audio workstation, I don't know how that would be done, because you can actually visually look at the different phrase elements and compare them, and you just cut notches and you just slide the piece along so it matches the phrase in the original take.
On those DAWs, there's also a plugin called Vocal Line.
Vocal line.
Yeah, it's
Sounds. I was gonna say gay, but that's not politically correct.
it sounds homoerotic.
It sounds homoerotic. It's better.
No, it's Vocal Line is like it's basically what you do. It's like you sit there and you take two vocal pieces, right, and matches them up together.
Cool.
Boo.
It does cut. It saves a lot of time. See, there's a
See,
lot. of
but I
time.
like doing that.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
And I could also justify charging for another hour.
money that.
Sometimes Vocal Line doesn't work. Vocal Line doesn't solve all your problems. But I think what we were like in tape sessions or hard drive sessions that go to your rolling workstation or PS whatever.
Yeah.
The key to solving that issue is making sure your vocalist actually listens to what the hell he's saying.
Yeah.
And have it play back.
That can only be coached so far, though. Like, I've had two from recording for years and having recorded so much hip hop, I don't know what to do about it. There were two guys that stood out.
Yeah.
Over the last 8 years that just were perfect. We're just
Yeah.
like spot on perfect. And the other, there were some other people where I was just hopeless, you know. And the edits took me quite a while.
Yeah, and then that happens. It definitely
Yeah.
happens. Singing, I think, is a lot harder for a lot of people. It's because you're actually having to do different keys to thicken up the vocals.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that I think is difficult. And your phrasing has to be spot on there a little bit even crazier because you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
that's why when you hear Celine Dion, you know, you hear the wait, that's not Celine Dion.
Were you gonna say "We Are the World"?
No,
Oh.
Wind Beneath My Wings or whatever.
Some crap like
is
that.
Bette Midler. Yeah, it's Bette Midler.
You know, they stack those vocals, man. And
Yeah.
they probably stacked them like at least one or twice, and that's why you get like the whole like, you know, wobbling like kind of phasing.
You get similar effects in rock and roll with guitars.
Mhm.
You know, you double your guitars. I don't know of any rock songs that are good that the guitars are not doubled.
Yeah.
That's just a well-known fact.
Doubling and tripling.
Tripling, and of course your performance has to be
Yeah.
dead on
Yeah.
in order for it to sound tight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll just sound kind of wishy-washy and loose.
Yeah.
So you want to just, it's almost like you become a robot and you just do it exactly the same way again.
But there's a way to solve some of those issues is by hand matching and
Sure.
phasing the track.
Sure.
You're going to run into phase issues, by the way, by dealing with all
Absolutely.
this stuff. So you're going to want to flip the phase on one of the tracks. Not so much with vocals, but with guitar,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, that happens
If
a
you're
lot.
like having to hand wash the track and find where, you know, the dip point is.
And that's the one thing you don't want is phase problems on a guitar track, you know.
Because then it won't sound like anything, really.
Yeah, it sound like crap. Sound thin.
So that's the synopsis on all that shit. Oh yeah, you could also, you know, read a book.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and watching. We will see you next time.
Oh yeah.